everybody. Welcome to the Run Selfie Repeat podcast, where we talk about life with a side of running. My name is Kelly Roberts, and I am your host. I'm also head coach and founder of the Badass Lady Gang. If you've never heard of the Badass Lady Gang, or if you've never heard of me, I am one of the first running influencers. I got started in this horse and pony show in 2014. It has been a decade, a decade that I've been running around with a camera in my face and dealing with people online telling me that I'm a narcissist and a nightmare. Very few people, if I'm being honest. Most people have been wonderful. And I'm an unlikely runner. I don't come from an athletic background. I was a theater kid who grew up in an athletic family, but really did not. I always call it like a very High School Musical relationship to athleticism. Like, I enjoy it. I enjoy play. But in terms of like really, really competitive stuff, I personally find most sports, the way that it's structured in the United States, to be like really problematic. Most people are not very good at sports and don't have aspirations to go to college to play sports or to become professionals. Yet that sort of, once you become middle school, high school age, that sort of becomes the definer of where you're placed and whether you can feel good doing what you're doing until you go to college or become an adult and find intramural, where it then becomes fun again, or the people who were put into this get a college scholarship, be the best kind of pipeline, then have to redefine their relationship with sport and movement, because for a long time it's been maybe how they qualify worth or success and failure, or it was a job, right? Like, parents play a huge role in this kind of stuff and skew people's relationship with a sport that maybe once upon a time they were deeply passionate about, and then they can't enjoy it anymore. So I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand why so many people lose the opportunity to play. Well, one huge economic piece of it, sports are very expensive for kids to be a part of. So a lot of kids don't get an opportunity to play because their parents either don't have the time to take them to all the things or be involved the way that other parents are, or they can't afford lessons and practice and to be a part of teams and stuff like that. And then if you want to do it at school where it is free, most teams are competitive and you get cut from being on the team because you're not quote unquote good enough, or you sit on the bench and you don't really get to play. So yeah, I've always had a very complicated relationship with that. And then you add in the whole weight loss element where I'm 35 or 34. I'm 34 or 35. I'm not quite sure. 1989. Let's actually just do some quick math. How old am I? 2024 minus 1989. I'm 35. I'm 35 years old. And in my generation and many generations that preceded me, we lived in an incredibly, and still to this day can live in an incredibly fat phobic society where your worth is defined by your waist size and your size. And I mean, I still see it right now, this conversation that everybody's having around GLP-1s and semaglutide, tirzepatide, all this stuff. You read comments on posts about them and people are like, just work out and eat well. And we now know that we're playing a losing game. A lot of people, the way that their hormones work or the way that their bodies work, they just don't process food the same way. Weight loss and being a healthy size is not as simple as calories in, calories out. I mean, I know this just anecdotally from coaching. I coach over 1,000 people a year. I work with thousands of runners. I've been a coach for years and I've worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I watch athletes of all different sizes kick ass and take names and do the absolute most. And they are not, quote unquote, healthy by the standards if we were to define them as skinny, which skinny does not equal like the end all be all. That's not how you tell whether someone is healthy or unhealthy. You cannot tell how healthy or unhealthy someone is by looking at them, right? The only way we can tell is blood tests, mental health, right? Like, there's lots of different ways that we can tell whether someone is healthy or unhealthy, and weight is not always the best indicator. So just food for thought. That's kind of how I got into running. My life kind of exploded Movement was always a form of punishment, or always something that I forced myself to do to try to lose weight, because I've always been in a bigger body, and I struggled with eating disorders, and yo-yo, my weight really cycled. So when I found running, I really thought like, wow, now I'm going to be skinny. And running really became a problematic thing for me. And it took a decade for me to really like get help and redefine my relationship with movement. So it's been a wild roller coaster ride. So if you've never met me before, that's kind of the TLDR, long story short. I became a coach a couple years ago, a running coach, because it just really frustrated me watching how many athletes were overtrained. And it's always really interesting to me. One of my favorite training experiences that we do at the Badass Lady Gang is a marathon training experience. I'm a really huge believer in group training and giving people the opportunity to be a part of something as they're training for their own specific goal. So we do these training experiences all year long at the Badass Lady Gang. Training experiences are programs that you can be a part of. You can buy a training experience membership, a subscription for X amount of months. So you get access to all of our resources for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks. And then you get a specific coaching call, one coaching call a week, where you and all your teammates get on one call, and we go through our journals and we talk through training and we make adjustments, and you learn with and through each other and from each other. Our team, our Badass Lady Gang training team, is the bulkier version of a training experience. So our team members get access for free to all of the training experiences, but you also get multiple coaching calls every single week. I still do one-on-one coaching. So I do private coaching, but the private coaching is very expensive. So our team is kind of like our middle ground. The team is incredibly inexpensive based on what's out there. If you're looking for a program where you can get actual access to a running coach and resources, if you can make the coaching calls, it is the cheapest option out there that you will. I guarantee no one's doing it the way we're doing it, and that's on purpose, because you need access to a coach. If you want a coach, if you're not talking to your coach face to face, texting and stuff like that, if you're someone who's experienced, you can text. But most athletes need to be able to talk through stuff, to understand their training, to talk through blocks, to talk through wins, all that stuff. You need to be face to face talking to a coach. Do not do texting coaching. That's so crazy. Unless it's crazy cheap. And we're talking like less than $50 a month. It's not worth it otherwise. So yeah. The training experiences, we do a marathon training experience every single year. And it always is interesting to me on the surveys when people think the mileage wasn't high enough, because we train by time. And I'm always curious to go through people's training logs and see how much time they spent strength training, because so many runners think they should just run. I just need to run as many miles as humanly possible because I'm training for a half marathon or a marathon. When in reality, if you think of it like baking a cake, if you just want to run, you are baking a cake with flour and sugar, right? Which that's not going to be a cake. That's going to be flour and sugar, and then maybe like milk, right? You need eggs, you need the baking soda or baking powder, you need the salt, you need all the other ingredients. So things like the mental work, the strength work. It takes time to do strength work. If you're starting at like 10 or 15 minute strength sessions and working your way up to 30 to 45 minute strength sessions, that's a chunk of training, and you should be doing that 2 or 3 days a week, regardless of what you're training for. Strength training is super, 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 super important, incredibly important, right? If you think of it in that same cooking context as salt, fat, acid, right? You can't just have fat, you need the acid, you need the salt, you need everything to balance out whatever it is that you're creating. So you need the cross training. Cross training, technically strength is cross training, but I like to think of it cross training as its own thing. So a low impact meaning that you're not out there hiking or walking. You're doing something where, if you think of cycling, right, the impact on your muscles and joints is not as great as something like running, because running is a lot of pounding. It's a lot of force. So cross training, if we think of it like swimming, cycling, elliptical, something where you're getting aerobic benefits and you're working complementary running muscles without the pounding of running to help you mitigate your risk for an overuse injury while still putting coins in the coin jar. So think of it like the mental work, the training plan that progressively works for you. And that's why I love our training experiences. You have to come to the calls, but you have to talk about your training. You need to ask for adjustments. We need to go through stuff together. If you just want to come to the calls and watch, that's fine, but you're not going to get the customizing, same thing with the team. If you can't come to the coaching calls, I wouldn't recommend joining the team. You need to be an active participant in your training. If you just want to be told what to do, go to do the private coaching for sure. Because then at least I can get you on a coaching call every single week and you and I can discuss your training. And there is a lot more hand-holding there and a lot more me telling you what to do. But I still get to have conversations with you so that you can really work through things with me. But training experiences, training team, private coaching, if you can't make the coaching calls, it's probably not worth it for you. Get a running plan. It's so much cheaper and you're going to get the same thing. You won't get access to me to customize things, but at least you're not spending top money on something that you're not going to use the benefits. So yeah, a lot of runners think that with running, it's just a lot of running. And I know coming out of week 11, one of the reasons I wanted to do this series on the podcast and on my channels is to really help people see all the different components that go into a training plan. This is Project 159. Again, if you're a first-time listener, Project 159 is this short little series that I'm doing on my social media channels and on my podcast where I'm sharing my training journey to kick off BQ or Bust. BQ or Bust was this series I did for a couple of years trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon. And a lot of people have an outcome goal, right? An outcome goal is something that's black and white. I want to run a marathon. I want to run a 5K. I want to break 40 minutes in the 5K. I want to break 4 hours in the marathon. I want to break 2 hours in the half marathon, right? Like we have these black and white goals. And so I'm a huge believer in chasing huge moonshotty, audacious goals, right? But on the way to those huge moonshotty goals, there's not necessarily a timeline that we know of when you're trying to when you're just getting started. One of the things I don't think I understood when I tried BQ or Bust the first time in 2016 was I was in killer shape to begin with. But because we didn't have TikTok or we didn't have Instagram in the way that we have the storytelling, there weren't many people sharing training the way that we have it today on YouTube. It was like 5 of us, and everyone was really, really fast. Everyone was BQers. And I was the slowest. I was one of the few. It was like me, Latoya, Martinez, Myrna. Like that was kind of it. There wasn't a lot of people sharing their experiences. So I was this like middle character and I had just I was really over exercising, but I had broken 2 hours in the half the year prior. I had just broken 4 hours in the marathon, which I knew was a big deal, but I didn't understand how fast that was. I didn't understand how fast I was. So when I was going to try to BQ, I remember as I'm asking Josh, my first coach, do you think this is possible? And he was like, oh yeah. I now understand why his answer was that. To me, I was like, are you just saying that for the camera? Like going from 359 and change down to 335 felt like such an insane chunk of time to chop off. But in hindsight, I had never really trained with a training plan. I just ran a lot. I wasn't doing speed work. I wasn't doing strength training the way I should. There were so many things. I wasn't doing the mental work. There were so many things that like with quick little dials in, of course it was possible. I didn't understand. I now understand that. So this time around, going into this training cycle, I was running 12-minute miles, right? Which was very different than my 9 to 10-minute mile pace back in 2016, right? The audacity of me to call my 9 to 10-minute miles slow in 2016 makes me want to throw up. But I didn't understand. I didn't have a lot to compare it to. there wasn't a lot of people talking about stuff. It was either you were like a 7-8 minute miler or a 9+ minute miler, and or faster than that. And I was the plus, you know, like we're so lucky now with the invention of these iPhones where you can with a click of a button, turn on stabilizer. Like for 5 years where I was shooting video content, we didn't have image stabilization. So on GoPros that were in waterproof cases and nothing else, like the audio was horrible. There was no way to stabilize images. So shooting running content was really, really hard, which is why no one did it. And then there was nowhere to share it to, right? There was just YouTube. You couldn't put video on Instagram. There was no TikTok. And all of a sudden in like 2020, we started getting iPhones that had the option of putting image stabilization on video so that when you were running, you weren't getting Blair Witch Project video. And then with the emergence of being able to put video on Instagram and then on TikTok, the world exploded, right? Now everyone could share their story. So now we're so lucky to have so many different experiences of runners sharing what it's like to run. So I wanted to share my experience going from where I was to trying to break 2 hours in the half marathon, because if I want to try to BQ next year, I don't know if a spring marathon is realistic or a fall marathon is realistic. And if you're listening to this every week, you've heard me say, I do think a spring marathon is now realistic. I do. I'm now also kind of understanding and coming to the realization that I don't think I want to run a spring marathon. I do, because they're saying it's going to be an unseasonably warm winter, which who knows what winter's going to be like. And I actually prefer running in winter over summer, but I'm feeling very unmotivated. I'm really down about the election, and that's not the only thing that's making me make this decision, but I don't know how January, February, March is going to go. I don't know how I'm going to be, and I'm actively working on it in therapy, but I don't want to put myself in a position to work really hard and then kind of have to fight this extra doom and gloom, sadness, and have my training go sideways because of something that's completely and totally outside of my control. On top of that, even though this has been a 12-week long training block, I've kind of been training since January for this, right? Now, my first couple of months, I knew I wanted to try to get faster, but then I had this opportunity to possibly run the Boston Marathon, and it took forever. It took months to solidify this deal and to get an answer from the brand if it was going to happen. And so I was like half training for a marathon because it might happen, it might not. And then every time I would decide like, this isn't going to happen. I don't think this is going to happen. I'm not going to train for a marathon that I'm not going to run. I would stop training for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they would like resume negotiation, and it would be like, so I was like having to kind of ramp up mileage in a way that I wasn't super stoked on. And then I ended up having a calf strain right after they decided like we're actually not going to do this. We don't have the budget. I got a calf strain like 2 days after. And I was like, fuck you guys. Fuck influencing. I hate my job. Do I even want to do this anymore? Do I get a real job? Not a real job, but a conventional job. And I almost just straight up dissolved everything. I was so upset. Which like this part of my job is such a nightmare. People, do we even want to have this conversation? Me and my best friend, Melissa, we hung out this weekend, and we went shopping, and then we went to dinner, and we were just like chit chatting. And she was like, I went to breakfast with all my coworkers this morning, and a couple of them are runners, and they were talking to me about the Matt Choi of it all. And, Matt Choi, for those of you who don't know, is an influencer and has had multiple instances where he's had people on bikes with him at races when they were not allowed to be on the course. You're never allowed to have people on bikes with you shooting content unless you explicitly get permission from a brand. And I will say, I remember when I did the Foot Locker 5 Borough Challenge, we had police escorts on like motorcycles and on parts of the course. And then we had bikes with us, like from the race. And it was there was no one on the course. It was truly just us, the 5 of us, on wide ass open New York City streets. Because we started the New York City Marathon like 1.5 hours before everyone else. And even then I almost ran into the bike so many times, or like I almost got ran over by that motorcycle so many times. It's complicated without anyone. Then you add in as many people as there are running the New York City Marathon and people in the streets and already like really narrow streets. Like it's just so dangerous. It was so stupid. So it happened multiple times and he kept getting hand slaps from the races, which I understand. The races are getting great publicity. And one of the reasons we're having this running boom is because of people online sharing experiences, hyping it up and making it more inclusive. So I do think that, like, as frustrating as it is, races don't want to alienate these people who are making their races really desirable. So he did it at New York City last year. I don't think he got a hand slap then. He did it in Austin, I think, is where he got the biggest hand slap. And people online were pretty pissed. But then he did it again this year. And they weren't just on bikes. They were on e-bikes. So really reckless, really, really, really unwise. And here's what I will say. I love Matt Choi. I think he is the nicest person, like a genuinely nice person. I do not think he's a bro. I think he definitely, sometimes some of his content can reek of a really young guy who knows it all, which that's how my stuff was. The only difference was I'm not a guy. And I had the humor element of it. But like, if you go back to my early stuff, like I knew it all. What I would give to be 28 again, when you know everything and you just have this, like, you're unabashed in in what you say. Like, I was so oversimplistic. I almost weaponized therapy talk. It is cringe on the highest level. Like, I had to stop watching BQ Robust because it just felt so cringe for me. It was just really hard for me to watch. So I think a lot of the stuff that Matt makes, like, it's not for me. It's not my type of content. He definitely is amped up, you know, like he also is like that, just like that, the dude online, you know, like I just think so many dudes there's a reason we're all like, don't put a podcast mic. What is Kamala going to do about dudes like buy their access to podcast microphones? I do think there's a piece of that. So I understand, you know, this quest to squash the ick that sometimes the sheer amount of what can sometimes feel like toxic positivity content, and just like these like wild platitudes and these like just like really dramatic edits of stuff, which like go on YouTube. It's all the boys do the same thing. It's a lot. It's not for me. And I'm glad that people love it. And I'm glad that more people are sharing their running journeys, you know, like there's space for everyone. But I do think I am the type of person that is like, I would rather leave it to the race, right? People raised their concerns and now let the race handle it. He got a lifetime ban from the New York Roadrunners. What I'm not cool with is the internet pile-on, right? The way that people were talking to him in his comments was so mean and nasty when people were asking me like, what do you have to say about it? And I was like, this was like the day before the election. And I was like, if you think for a second this is occupying any part of my brain, you are fucking nuts. I am so freaked out of my mind over this election. I'm about to lose my bodily autonomy further than I already have. That is what I care about. That matters. This does not fucking matter. And also, like, he fucked up. He's going to have consequences. Okay. Right? If you want to have a conversation of the content that he's making and why he makes you feel the way that you feel, articulate that. But like, don't be mean just for the sake of being mean. I'm not into that shit, especially as someone who's been on the tail end of internet pile-ons. And I think for very different reasons. But either way, it doesn't matter. You know, like I think of the video I made about that comedian on SNL on social media the other day, a week ago, where he made like a deeply misogynistic joke and furthered and I understand what he was trying to, it was irony. He was being ironic about the fact that misogyny played such a big role in it, but it wasn't smart. It wasn't like furthering, it didn't have a take. It just felt like punching down. It was a bad joke. It was like the timing was really shitty, and it just was so disappointing. There's a difference sharing disappointment and speaking to that sort of stuff, and then like an internet pile-on because an influencer did something really stupid. I like don't understand the vitriol coming for Matt Choi. I don't get it. Right? Like, now, had he been speaking about race or misogyny and making misogynistic comments or like putting people down, sure, I could understand kind of sort of, but it was like, it just made me so mad that so many people cared about that and were not up in arms about the election. Well, a lot of people were up in arms about it. Maybe they needed an escape. I don't fucking know. The timing was really shitty. But we were talking about like, we just were having a bigger conversation about the conversation of it all and how people were speaking to him. And honestly, I'm more curious, did he gain more followers than he lost? Because that's what I would assume happened. But yeah, if someone's not for you, mute them, unfollow them, or block them. Say what you need to say in a way that is not just like vitriol. You know, me saying I hope that guy, the comedian, shits his pants, I still feel that way. I do. I'm really deeply, deeply annoyed that as many people saw that who could have helped shape that joke and didn't. Something I think a lot of people don't know about me is I work for an actor. Part-time, I do social media, and we're constantly on at big shows, really big daytime talk shows, or doing stuff, and we're writing jokes, or I'm helping write jokes, or I'm sometimes the last person who sees stuff before I turn it over to, you know, the staff at the show to put on the prompter to go live on television, and we're working fast. Just the week of the election, we were at a big daytime talk show and doing this. And oftentimes we're writing tons of jokes, or her and her friends are writing tons of jokes. And as we're trying to pick the format and the flow and trying to like just get the script, we're often having to say, is this the best we can do? Is this kind? And like, oftentimes we're saying, I like this joke so much better, but like, I just don't think it's very nice. Or like, especially if someone's going to be there and we don't have the opportunity to run it by the person, we never want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. So we're always trying to like walk a fine line. So like, I know that there's a lot of people in the mix okaying stuff. So I think the bigger thing that I was frustrated about was the amount of people, really, really good joke writers at SNL, comedians, writers, all the things on his team at SNL, producers, who all saw it and said like, whatever. And not like, dude, this is just, the timing's really bad. And like, we can do a better joke. Let's write a better joke. What about this? What about this? What about this? It's just frustrating to me. It is frustrating to me that when things are as bad as they are, more people aren't feeling this like call to do something about it. And that's sad to me. Just fucking annoying. But anyways, I don't know why I brought this up. It's just been at the top of my mind, and we were just having this conversation about it. But yeah, online vitriol, man. Also, someone fucking slid into my DMs and with a screenshot of like a Reddit thread about me a couple weeks ago, not a couple weeks ago, like 4 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, asking if Badass Lady Gang was an MLM. And here's the thing. Don't ever message me on Instagram or TikTok. Don't ever slide into my DMs because I don't check the other folder. If we don't follow each other, I can't see your messages. Shoot me an email. If you ever have a question, email me. Email info@badassladygame.com. We will email you back. But in terms of the DMs, because I've been doing this so long, the amount of really mean things in that folder is high. Like people saying cruel, horrible things about me, fat shaming me, like so much is in there. So though I miss a lot of business and like just nice inquiries or messages from you guys, I half-heartedly check it, but not really. So never slide into that DM. And I don't know, I opened something checking it and saw it, and it just made me so sad, but it also inspired my MLM joke. So my MLM joke sign. We are not an MLM, a multi-level marketing. I wish we were. I often joke that we should be because I'm just so fed up. And no, free online community and free in-person meetups is not a very good business model to be an MLM. No, I'm just building community. I don't know why I felt called to do that and not create a church and just prey on dumbasses, you know, like Joel Orstone, what's his name, style. But it's not out of the cards. I think of it every day of just starting a church. If you can't beat them, join them. You know, I'm tired of being poor. Anyways, Project 159. Should we talk? Because it's race week. Wow, I've been talking for a long time. I had a lot to get off my chest. Let's talk training. Actually, before we talk training, just a reminder, the Badass Lady Gang training team, it's on sale. It's 2024 as I'm recording this. If you're listening to this in real time, our team is on sale November and December 2024. Big savings. Join the team, get support, stop over training and get the support you deserve. Take the guesswork out of training. Come join the team. Think of it. It's $520 a year. That comes down to what? You can't, this is not what you'll pay monthly, but it could be, if you think of $520 a year, that's $43 a month, right? It's $520 a year or $65 a month. So in terms of 6 coaching calls every single week that you could join, and all the training experiences and the weekly strength call and our journals and all the things you get, you're not going to get that anywhere else. Come join the team. We love what we do at the team. I love our team. It truly has been like a lifeline. You know, these coaching calls every single week in this day and age. We're going to be doing a lot of running in 2025, everybody. Stay injury free. Come get support. Come get community. Join the team. It is the best. I love our team. All right, Project 159. So week 11 just wrapped up, and I finally feel like it wasn't a terrible week, but I definitely feel really, really unmotivated still. Let's go through what my training was supposed to be. So Monday, originally, I had cross training on my plan. I ended up doing 50 minutes and just straight up didn't check what I had on my plan. So when I got home, I was like, oh, oops. So then Tuesday, I took my rest day. Wednesday, I had 3 by 15 minutes at threshold pace. That is what I did. It felt good. I cruised the entire time. It was a little warmer than I would have liked, but still like not bad at all. Rep 1 was an average of 8:26, 8 minute 26 seconds. Rep 2 was an average of 8 minutes 32 seconds. And then rep 3 was an average of 8 minutes 48 seconds. So very happy with how my threshold pace workout went. The last 5 minutes of rep 3 was hard, but like felt really in control, felt really strong. Rep 3 was mostly uphill, so I felt really good about that. Thursday, I had 60 minutes on my schedule, and I did 60 minutes. I did do 60 minutes. I was like, no, I didn't, but I did. Friday, I had cross training, so I did 45 minutes on my Peloton. Saturday, I had an hour 20, and that is what I did, and not a second more. It was a challenging run. I felt crappy the entire time. I didn't feel like terrible, horrible. It wasn't like the worst run in the world. But again, this goes to show how important the mental game stuff is, so that when you are having a day where you feel meh or like it's just harder than you feel like it should be, you're able to like lock into chunks and you're able to find this neutral headspace, and you don't have to judge yourself or like panic. The mental game is such a huge piece of the puzzle, and it doesn't just happen. You have to work for it. So grateful for the mental game there. And then yesterday I had a fucking killer run, 45 minutes, which is so annoying because why was that I flew? Why couldn't that have been on Saturday? It's not fair. So annoying. But yeah, this was a good week. I felt good about my taper week run. After having things go sideways a bit. I still am struggling to get out the door, but like I have my habits. I have all the things I come back to. So I trust that I'm going to do it. Yeah, it was good. Now we're in race week. This is it. This is week 12. I don't know what's going to happen after this. I don't know. I haven't really thought of it much in a way that felt like a call to action. I don't know if I'm going to go for a spring marathon or a fall marathon. I did enter the Chicago lottery on Saturday. So a part of me is thinking about trying to do Chicago 2025. That is what my gut is saying to do. But then a big piece of me really wants to do Disney as well, which somebody messaged or someone commented, I think on TikTok, saying you wouldn't be able to ride rides in Hollywood Studios. And I don't think that's right, because I watched a TikTok of a girl who rode a ton of rides. The way that it would work is I would try to be as fast as humanly possible until I get to, well, I'd have to pace it so that I could get to Hollywood Studios when it opens and then spend an hour trying to ride rides like she did. And I know that this is a challenge. Like there is like a straight up, let me look it up. Hold on. Walt Disney World Marathon. How many rides is the record? Let's see if anything pulls up. Okay, one has a record. Can anyone shed knowledge of what the full... Okay, hold on. Record. Wait. I'm trying to control F the word record because I saw that on the... Dang it. I'm wasting your time, but I'm looking. Sorry. Womp womp. One has a record for the most total rides ridden during the marathon. Where's that? That's annoying. So yeah, I've seen it on TikTok. I've seen people do this where there's like a challenge where you can try to ride it, and it includes lightning lanes and like all this stuff. So that's what I would want to do. That's how I'd want to do it. Granted, it is also to have a good fallback to try to BQ. I do think trying to do Walt Disney World to try to BQ would be an incredibly difficult race to BQ, because I would probably be alone-ish. Like those races people don't push. Those races people, I mean, when I did the 5K and 10K at Disneyland this year, I was alone for a lot of the 5K, and I was doing like 9-something minute miles, you know, like there was no one around. So people don't race those races. People don't run fast at those races. So I think if I were to try to BQ, I just don't think I'd have to convince people to do it with me who could possibly pace me so that I would have people to work with. Because even when you're in a big crowd and you're working with people, like it's helpful. So if I'm all alone, that might be hard. But I mostly want to do it for fun and try to do the challenge where you ride as many rides as you want. That's what I'd really want to do. So I don't know. Right now I'm leaning towards Chicago. We'll see if I get in. But yeah, we're also going to Sydney next year. Badass Lady Gang is doing a trip to Sydney, which just got announced that it's going to become a world marathon major. So actually, if you are interested in joining our trip, I'm not planning it, which everyone should sigh a huge sigh of relief. We're doing it with Adventure Time Travel, which is an Australian company whom I love. They produced that movie, I'm Not a Runner, or I'm Not a Real Runner. I don't remember. But I love the team. They do this for all the majors, so I'm really, really excited. I think it's 5 days, 6 nights. We chose 5 days, 6 nights instead of 8 days, 9 nights, or 9 days, 10 nights, because I figured most people would want to do their own little side trip on top of Australia. So that way you're doing like Sydney based stuff with us. And then obviously the marathon if you want to run it, or you come in if you want to cheer. And then you can go, snorkeling at the Great Barrier Reef, or you can go, to the Queensland Zoo, or wherever you want to go in Australia, or pop off to New Zealand. Whatever you want to do, you could do. So I'm really excited. I think we have 30 or 40 spots. So that's going to be a really fun trip. I'm very excited about that. And I'm not doing that as my BQ race because it's hilly. So yeah, crazy times. But that means some of my longest long runs will be there, which is a bummer. Oh, well. All right. Should we talk race week? Because that's where we are. We're in race week. It's this Saturday, which is so exciting because I'm ready to be done. Today is Monday, and I know I'm recording this late, but I just really did not want to work yesterday. I'm trying. I have my therapist in my ear. Stop working on the weekends, and I know that I'm going to work this weekend and next weekend. I'm not really going to get a Thanksgiving break because we're going to the parade for work. So I know the next 2 weeks are going to be no breaks. So I kind of forced myself to do my Kelly day off, where I did email in the morning and the evening, which I know I can hear my therapist in my ear. That's not taking a day off. But I work alone. It's just, if I don't do it, it probably won't get done. So Kelly has to do it. Today, cross training. Tomorrow, I have a final little tune-up speed session. So 1 mile at threshold pace, 2 by 800 at interval pace, and then 2 by 400 at interval pace. Exciting. And then I probably will do 2 by 200 at repetition pace, just quick, fast. I'm either going to do that, or I might just game day change it and do 5K starting at race pace down to faster than race pace. I don't know. Probably going to stick with the latter. Wednesday, 50 minutes. Thursday, 50 minutes. So just a loop of the park, probably more 45, 50 minutes. Friday is a travel day because we're going down to the Philly half. And then Saturday is race day. We are not doing a meetup. I'm also not staying for the marathon. I got to get back to my kitty cats. And I'm honestly just burnt out after the last couple months. I just need to come home. But yeah, here's my race day goals. So my A goal is a sub 158. So I'm hoping something along the lines of 157 to 157.30. So pacing wise, here's my A goal: 9:21 for the first 2 miles, then bringing it down to 9:12 for mile 3. So still above race pace. This is a very, very aggressive negative split, meaning I'm going to start well above race pace, hit race pace for a second, and then dip below race pace. So for me, race pace is a 9. So mile 3, 9:12-ish, 4 and 5, hopefully 9:05-ish, and then 6 and 7, 9 minutes. And then at mile 7, we start kind of dipping into that work area. 8 and 9, 8:50s. If I feel good and I can keep going, 10 through 12, or 10 and 11, 8:45, 12, 8:40, 13, maybe. Can I do an 8:30? Let's see. And then that final push up that hill, I'm hoping for a 110. I would love for that to be more 50 seconds up that 200. It's a little less than 200 meters, but it's completely uphill. And I know how I've been feeling when I push efforts uphill and I start dry heaving, and I hate dry heaving. So I just need to stay a little bit above pukey pace. So hopefully 108. And if I were to stick with exactly that, it's a 157.28. My B goal is it's sub 2. So breaking 2. So this pacing plan would put me about 159.20 to 30. So I would start it the way I would for my A goal. So 9:21, and then 9:12. And then I would check in and say, how do I feel? If this feels really hard, I'm going back to 9:21 for another 2 miles, 9:20, 9:21. And then we start to dip. But this time I'm not really going to go below 8:55. So if I feel like we're working, but I'm okay, 6 and 7 would be 9, 10. And then 8, 9, 10, and 11 would be 9. And then I would think final 2 miles, can I do 8:55? And then again, that same, can I do 110 up the 200? So that would give me 1:59:20. But that also means I have 40 seconds to I have a 40-second cushion, which if there's a hilly part of the race, which I know that there is, I can fall off that 9 pace to move back towards 9, 10, 9:20, which is fine. But and then my C goal, of course, is just personal best effort. So here's the thing. The way that you race, really a half marathon is through 8. You want to stay off of like building lactate in your legs and staying off of a really hard race-ish. So for those of you who do kilometers, that's about like 13K. So through that point, you want it to be comfortably hard, but not really threshold pace, a little bit above threshold pace. From there, it's kind of like, that's where the race begins. So I like to think of it as like 8 to 10, and then 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile, right? You're kind of always just thinking of the chunks of the race. So for me, I'm thinking like 0 to 5K, 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 and then from there, 2 miles. And then from there, I'm just doing 1 mile at a time. 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile, and then 0.1. I'm not really thinking 1 mile down, 12 to go, 2 miles down, 11 to go. Like, that's not what you want to be doing. You want to be thinking really small bite-sized chunks so that you can call back to that sort of stuff in training. So like in the moment, you can make game time decisions where you're knowing, what on a Wednesday I'm doing 4 miles. So you can kind of in the moment be like, I just have a Wednesday left. That's nothing. I have this. I only have 2 miles left. That's like on my run when I'm at this light. And that's where I think like almost done, right? Like things like that. You think back to your training and your speed play and you're able to say, I know I can do this significantly faster. Okay, perfect, right? Like, so you're just kind of going off of effort level, but you don't want to feel like you're really, really, really working hard before mile 8. I would say around the 5 or 6 mile mark, you can kind of check in and say, how do I feel? I mean, listen, it really depends on how experienced you are racing, but for the most part, you can make huge gains in the final 5K by racing a little bit more conservatively in the first half, right? You can drop a minute off your pace. You can run a really strong final mile or 2 miles or 3 miles. You can run a really strong 5K and shave a ton of time off. So when I say like I'm doing a very, very aggressive negative split, I'm doing a very aggressive negative split because I really don't know where I am. I know where I am on my threshold pace, but my 10K was a really hilly 10K, and that's it's hard for me to gauge based on my time what I think like an accurate half marathon time will be. So instead of trying to go off of these set paces, like I was going back and forth about whether or not I'm going to manually lap my watch, which means that I set it up in a way that I'm going to like hit my lap button every single time I hit a mile marker so that I can get an accurate split and I don't have to worry about my watch clocking a mile 20 seconds early or 10 seconds early. And I'm decided I'm not going to manually lap my watch. I'm going to just let my watch run and try my best to not look at my watch, to just run. I'm allowed to look at my watch, right? It's information to collect, but it kind of depends on where you are and what your experience is. Sometimes if you're newer to racing and you have a lot of predefined limits where you see paces and you think I can't do that, or paces make you feel a certain way, they make you anxious, or you start to think I'm going too fast. If you don't have experience to call upon, right? Like the difference is in my 10K that I did in Sleepy Hollow a couple of weeks ago, there were a couple of times where I was like, oh my God, I'm running too fast. And when I saw my watch, and I have a lot of experience to call upon, I also have a lot of mental training. So I was able to, in that moment when I saw like, oh, I'm running too fast, stop and check in and say, okay, but how do I feel? And I was like, I feel great. this doesn't feel hard. I mean, that's not true. This feels hard, but it feels like something I can sustain for the entire race. So if at the end of the day I hold this the entire time, that's okay. But I also think that there's other gears that I can shift into. I think I can get faster. So that's the checking in that you're doing, right? When you're racing and you're learning to race, I wanted to run this race more like 9:21 through mile 4 or 5 and then start going down. And I kind of had to like be my own coach in that moment and say like, I think you just want to do that because you're scared. And we both know that you're capable of more than that based on how your training's going. So let's do 9:21, 9:21, 9:12, a big jump. And then we check in and see how we feel. And if we're like, this feels great, right? We go towards 9 and we hold that for a while until we hit around mile 7. And then we say, how do we feel? This is hard, but like, I'm okay. Great. Let's start moving down. Let's start pushing it a little bit more. Right? It's just efforts. And it's okay to look down and see if once I'm start in the 850s, 845s, if I see a 9 or 910, like it's okay. Right? That's okay. How do I feel? What do I need right now? Do I need more calories? Like you're just staying present and in the moment, and you're making decisions based on what you can do right now. I think one of the things I used to kind of get into, not the habit of, but the thought processes I would have when I was racing was if I didn't click into flow immediately, like it wasn't going to be my day. And you don't always need flow, right? It's wonderful when you have flow, which means you kind of like blink and you're done. And that doesn't mean that you're not cognizant of what you're doing or that you don't need to fight or work, but mostly it's a great day. You do just have to try to work. It's not necessarily fighting. And I know that I can run really strong on a bad day. I know that I can give my personal best on a tough, challenging day. And I don't get to decide I don't get to decide the circumstances. I wish I could. It's not inside my control. And right now it does look like it's going to fucking rain on Saturday, which is fucked up because we're in a drought and it hasn't rained in weeks, and now all of a sudden it's going to rain on race day, which I'm happy for us that we're going to get rain, but like we couldn't wait one more day. Like if that's not the most 2024 thing in the world to go weeks and weeks and weeks without rain and then have it rain again on race day, that sucks. I don't want it to rain. I really hope it doesn't rain. Rain is not the end of the world. But I mostly just don't want wind, and rain when it's like 40 something degrees sucks. It's cold. You're wet. I don't want to be cold and wet. Luckily people won't be able to see me cry. So that's nice, but I hope it doesn't rain. I just want a nice, crispy, wonderful day. But I understand if it does, it's not the end of the world. I don't mind rain that much. I just don't like rain when it's really cold. So I hope it doesn't rain. So everybody put out the vibes that it just doesn't rain for 2 hours on Saturday. No, it doesn't rain. No puddles. No puddles. Ugh, such a bummer. All right, but that's what's happening. And then we go to breakfast after the race, and then we come back to New York City. So quick. I also don't want to go to Pennsylvania because I'm mad at you, Pennsylvania, for the way that you voted. So a part of me was like, do we just cancel this trip entirely? I don't want to give that state any money. But I prepaid the hotel, so I already gave them my money. So technically, maybe we'll just make our own meals and we won't give them any money. I'm mad and I'm petty. So yeah, that's the plan. Race week. Think of me Saturday morning. Personal best. That's all I can do is give my best. Next time we talk, I will be done. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know whether I'm going to do a spring marathon or a fall marathon. I still really want to do my spring marathon, but I just don't know if I have it in me. TBD. All right, everybody. Kick ass, take names. If you need any of the links to training team, to training experiences, if you have any questions, please shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to talk to you about whether or not it might be a right choice for you, but I hope you'll join us. We have a lot of fun on the team. Bye, everybody.